we have lost the ability to reason. We've lost the ability to. We are going and splitting into so many different tangents and so many different clubs of thought that, we never went to the moon. The Jews killed Charlie Kirk. RFK's eating dogs.
And 9/11. Yes.
It's like,
I'm totally with you.
Look, you don't have to agree with everything, and there are many things that need to be questioned, but my gosh, and the problem is you don't know where to separate, because for a long time I was fine with, better living through pharmaceuticals. I didn't think the pharmaceutical companies would do what I think they're doing. I didn't think our food companies would ever intentionally addict us to things. It just didn't seem, because I wasn't like that, and I didn't know anybody that would be like that. But we're finding out that some of that is really true. And
it's very true.
Right?
And very scary. But I would say this. Much of this is about the machine, and the machine has a bottom line, and the machine reports to Wall Street, and so they need profit. People are just cogs in that machine.
Right.
And I don't think these individuals are ill-intentioned, but they definitely get caught up in these industries and incentivized to, hey, how many crunches on that chip are going to make it more appealing? You're a food scientist. This is your job, and you probably got into the business because you wanted to facilitate some sort of invention. I'll give you an example. There's one called Appeal that got a really bad rap, that is a coating on fruit and vegetables that allow the produce to not go bad for roughly a week or so longer. This would be great, right? And it's actually, I ended up doing a deep dive into it, and it seems pretty safe, if you will.
Okay. This year, celebrate Christmas that's all about family and freedom and American values. Give a gift from American Giant. Clothing made in America with American cotton and American workers.
I started American Giant, over 10 years ago now, because I'd just gotten fed up with what I was seeing in the clothing industry in particular. It had become an industry that was making really cheap stuff. And I thought that was really bad for the things that we care about. I thought it was really bad for the people and places that make things. And there's something really magical when you connect with the people that are making your clothes and the places that are making your clothes, and you meet the farmers and you meet the knitters and you meet the people that are sewing the products. It makes you a real steward of that product. And I think as a consumer, there's a dimension to that matters.
This year, give a gift of American quality, a gift that will last. American Giant makes the best hoodie you'll ever own, and so much more, including these cool and comfortable bomber jackets. Go to american-giant.com/Glenn. Use my name and get 20% off your first purchase. Buy American this Christmas at american-giant.com/Glenn.
Let's say you get into the industry to do things like this and to save the world and to feed the world and all of this good stuff. But when you're getting hired to incentivize people to drink more soda and to eat more chips, that's unfortunately what's going to pay your bills.
So how do you know where the line is? Because I think, look, America fed the world. And, we did all this GMO stuff. We did everything, but we fed the world. And so at the beginning, it was a really good thing. And somewhere along the line, I don't know where, but somewhere along the line, that changed. And so I just don't know where the line is. How do you know where the line is?
I'm actually writing a book about this right now. And it looks at the ways in which our food policy, our policy around big ag, pharma, big insurance, at the ways in which these industries captured well-intentioned legislation and inverted them. And it's like, mechanization after the war, and we have to feed Europe, and how can we manipulate this? And how do we manipulate natural disasters to profit off of it financially? And how do we, it's crazy. But the laws that were passed, and it's so long. I would love to come back next year when the book releases and walk you through it, but it is absolutely nefarious because everything that was passed with the best of intentions ended up getting in the wrong hands and subsequently manipulated to be weaponized against the American people. And of course, you're seeing that spread out globally. But in particular, we suffer the most here in the United States. Unquestionably, we have the worst outcomes with regard to health, and we spend the most on healthcare. There's reasons why.
So I remember hearing this long time ago, and I was like, come on, that we are, our food is addicting, and it's not good, and our medicine is not really meant to heal us. It's to keep us sick, et cetera, et cetera. And I didn't believe that, but I do believe that. I really do believe that now, at least to some degree. I don't know how much is nefarious and how much just is. You have a comment on that?
I could make this very simple. If you deem profit over people as nefarious, then it is.
Yeah.
Okay, then it is.
Yeah.
That's what you're seeing. Now, with that said, when it comes to big food, by the way, you'd have to start at big ag because it is a catastrophic quartet of big ag, then big food, then big pharma, and then big insurance. And it's just the way the system is designed, unfortunately. But if we were to look at the ways in which they engineer the food, there's something that most people will likely have heard of called the bliss point. And this was created by a food scientist in the 1970s to look at the perfect ratio of fat and sugar and salt to trigger the bliss point of our brain to make us want more.
Oh my
That
gosh.
is probably the least nefarious thing that has happened.
Oh, you're kidding me. Wow.
No. And it's exceptionally unfortunate. But the reality is that there is a multidisciplinary team of scientists and behavioralists and marketing experts that work around the clock trying to figure out how to make you not eat just one. That's not a slogan, you can't eat just one. That's a business model, period. And even now, just wrote an article about this actually in the Daily Mail, the food companies are trying to find a way to make these ultra-processed foods now bypass your GLP-1 hormone pathways because people taking weight loss drugs
Are
it's
breaking the
working.
addiction.
They are breaking the addiction. Now, I of course, there are side effects to that, and it's exceptionally expensive. And I wish we could do it in alternative ways that cost less and are healthier. But nevertheless, it is costing a heck of a lot of money. So what do? All right, what are we going to do about this? How are we going to get around this? How are we going to engineer these foods to bypass this? Which is insane. I can't
that's
even
evil.
ramifications.
That's evil.
Okay, well, that's happening. So I can tell you what's happening. And then you can ascribe any particular adjective that you like. But that is the kind of stuff that is happening and has been happening for decades.
I was thinking about this the other day. I was sitting at the table, we were having some hamburgers, and I looked at the ketchup bottle, and I looked at the ingredients. And I'm old enough to remember, I think, at least this is the way I remember it, the ingredients of ketchup on Heinz used to be tomatoes, I think water, vinegar, salt, and maybe a little sugar. But that was it. And now it's stuff I've never even heard of. And it's a paragraph of ingredients. Why did that happen?
It happened for a host of reasons. And by the way, there's a lot on the tomatoes that were used in that ketchup that you aren't seeing on the label. So herbicides, fungicides, pesticides, chemical fertilizers. And one little sidebar with regard to that stuff, while all of us are engaged in these ridiculous culture wars, which unfortunately are serious, but we're going after each other. Meanwhile, the Uniparty in Washington is giving complete blanket immunity to the chemical companies for things like glyphosate, which we know are exceptionally dangerous to human health. So we're sitting here, we're fighting about men and women's sports. unfortunately, as we should be, because it's not fair, but
Right.
crazy stuff is happening.
Right.
And I have to wonder, is all of that by design to create such an insane distraction? So all of these chemicals you're not seeing on the ketchup bottle that are actually in there, why has this ingredient list expanded in the way that it has? To make it taste even better so that you choose that bottle of ketchup over this bottle of ketchup, maybe to make it glow in a brighter color of red, again, so you're more attracted to that bottle of ketchup over this bottle of ketchup, to make it last on the shelf through a zombie apocalypse because it's more profitable when you have less spoilage. All of these different reasons that all come down to profit. How do we make it taste better? How do we attract you more to it? How do we make it last longer on the shelf? Period. End of story.